Well, the Kansas basketball offseason is officially underway. The Jayhawks are headed home after the round of 32 of the NCAA tournament. Obviously, KU lost to Gonzaga on Saturday afternoon, and Bill Self and the Kansas staff will take no time in hitting the transfer portal to start building the roster for the 2024-2025 season. And look, everything is shaping up for this to be another really busy offseason in Lawrence for the Kansas basketball coaching staff. There's obviously a lot that can happen here over the next few months. So let's dive right into it. First and foremost, Kansas is going to lose some seniors. Kevin McCullough will move on. Parker Brown will move on. And Nick Timberlake will move on. Those are the guys that have been known that they're done, right? Their final season of college eligibility. But there are really two big decisions then coming up for Kansas players and what they're going to do. And those are really going to be the decisions that shape this off season for KU. First and foremost, it's Hunter Dickinson. What does he decide to do? He has one more year of college eligibility remaining. So he can decide whether to go pro, return to Kansas. Technically, transferring is an option too, though that is the least likely of his three options. And he's the one that will decide a lot for Kansas, because if he decides to come back, that gives Kansas the interior anchor of the team for next year. Kansas would still maybe go after a big man we'll have to see how the roster shakes out in that regard. But Dickinson's decision will be one of the biggest that is made all offseason. If he decides to go pro, you're looking at Kansas having to go and get a starting center from the transfer portal, because Kansas does have a 5-star signee in Flory Badunga, but he's a very raw player. He hasn't played at a super high level in high school, right? Playing in Indiana, not the same type of level he's going to step into at Kansas. So he's not the type of player that's going to be ready to start from the get-go. So you can kind of see how Hunter Dickinson and what he decides to do really is kind of the starting point, I feel like, for the offseason for Kansas. And then I think the second most important decision for the offseason is what Johnny Furphy decides to do. Obviously, he came on really strong during Big 12 play. There probably weren't many players in the Big 12 who were shooting at a better clip than he was during the month of January. But then February and March, things kind of tailed off for him. And so he's got a decision to make, though. Where is he on draft boards? I think it's reasonable to expect that he will at least test the waters, right? You can declare as many times as you want now, and go and test and see what you think and get feedback. And I'd expect Furphy does that. But the real decision is whether he decides to go back to school or not. If he does return to school, that's a huge win for Kansas, and something I think the coaching staff really has to work hard to do, because he would offer Kansas shooting, versatility on the wing, and some rebounding and the ability to attack and transition, right? I think those are the things that Furphy does really well. And those are the things that Kansas needs on next year's team, right? Think about the shortcomings of this year's squad. Not a lot of shooting. Well, Kansas needs as much shooting as possible this offseason, and Furphy returning would give Kansas just that. And then behind him, obviously, you've got guys like DeJuan Harris, KJ Adams. Those two are going to be back. They'll be back with KU next year. DeJuan Harris has already put out on social media that you'll see him next year. And Bill Self has said as much, right? DeJuan Harris did not give a senior speech because he knew he was coming back. So you start to see this core forming for KU of what next year's team could look like. And roster-wise, they will have more spots. This year, they vacated 2 scholarship spots because of the NCAA investigation and their self-imposed penalties. Next year, Kansas is expected to vacate the final scholarship of that 3 scholarship reduction that they have to do over the course of 3 seasons. If they do that, they'll have 12 scholarship slots to work with. And that gives KU some room to maneuver. You've got incoming freshman Badunga, like I mentioned. There is Riquise Passmore, who's coming in, a guy that's more of maybe a guard wing combo, good shooter, but maybe not going to be ready to play as a freshman. Then there's LeBaron Philon, who is coming from Link Academy, one of the better high school basketball academies in the country. He's played with some high-profile players, knows how to play in an offense where he's not going to get a lot of shots. So you've got those 3 freshmen coming in. Kansas is also still recruiting high school players, Liam McNeely, former Indiana commit, being one of them. And so for KU now in the offseason, right, there's a lot of things that can happen. And so it is shaping up to be another really, really busy few months for KU. If you want to read more about the offseason, the way things are shaping up, Eric Bossi the 24/7 Sports national college basketball writer, did a great job outlining a lot of these decisions and what the roster could look like next year. You've got some guys that have decisions to make, like we covered. And then there are others like freshmen, Jamari McDowell and Marco Jackson, right? Continuity is something that is maybe lost in college basketball nowadays, and we'll see how much KU is able to maintain that continuity. So you want to read more on that, head over to fog.net. We got that story up for you. I'll also have something posted on Sunday, some things of what I'm hearing, at least on what the decisions could look like for KU this offseason. We'll get to needs in a different video at a different time, but let us know in the comments, who do you want to see Kansas return? Who would you like to see Kansas go after in the transfer portal? Are there any types of needs you think Kansas has, the type of player? Let us know in the comments down below. Make sure you're liking the videos, subscribing to the channel. We got a lot coming your way this offseason for KU basketball and obviously KU football as well. Spring practice is going on right in the thick of that. And so busy times ahead. And make sure, if you're not already subscribed, join VIP. You get a taste of what that's like. If you want to start for a month, you get 30% off. And then if you want to go for a full annual, obviously you can take care of that 30% off deal as well. So thanks as always for watching, and we'll talk to you later.